You're on mute, Luke.
Oh, I'm on mute. Am I back on? There we go. We always have problems, don't we, when we're trying to start the streams. Welcome back to the podcast. Of course, it's another preview show for the upcoming National League games, Game Week 10. Of course, there's a lot to talk about on that side of things. But on the other side of things, we've had another manager that's departed, one that I think a lot of Oldham fans have been crying out for a long time. York City have got the first win of the season. There's a lot more as well, but I don't actually have my notes in front of me at the moment. But yeah, there's a lot to comment on tonight. But before we get into all of that, Paul, firstly, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Luke. How are you?
Yeah. Just another defeat at home. I think another boring game. Of course, we lost to Dorking at home, which you never like to lose, especially your home games. But yeah, what was it like down in Wealdstone then?
It was a very dull 0-0 against a hard-working, organised, depleted Altrincham side. I think on the balance of play, Wealdstone had more of the chances in the second half, especially coming down the hill towards their own fans, but couldn't quite sort of break the deadlock. Both teams essentially cancelled each other out. You know, they're so similar off the field in terms of size and where they want to go. You know, they're 11th and 12th in the league, and then on the pitch they were exactly the same. They played exactly the same way, possession based, allowed each team to play, and then tried to get the other team to break them down, and it wasn't able to be done. So we walked away with another point. I guess against someone at Altrincham, you got to take it, but ruin a couple more chances that probably could have got us 3 points.
A point closer to safety, though.
Yeah, I would suggest so, Luke. You know, I don't think Wealdstone fans are under any illusion of trying to get in the playoffs and you know, hopefully replicate what we did last year is probably the best we can do. But yeah, listen, it's a tough league. We've seen that. You know, anyone can beat anybody, and apart from maybe poor Southend, who are in a real predicament, everyone else looks like they've got the ability to make a move. So yeah, I think we just got to look at it as another point from going down.
Anyway, we'll move on from our depressing clubs when there's not very much to talk about at the moment because, like we've said, York, they've got the first win of the season against Southend. But I think the big talking point tonight, and the major one, I think we're probably going to spend quite a lot of time talking about, is in fact that David Unsworth has departed. Well, he's actually been sacked from Oldham Athletic. A long time coming, wouldn't you say, Paul?
Yeah, not at all surprised. You know, look, reading, seeing social media as we do, you know, following the National League, Oldham fans are quite outspoken with their feelings around David Unsworth and the lack of a job he was doing. Maybe a bit surprised the fact that only a week or so before, you know, the owners turned around and said that he's going to stick with him, and you know that just get behind him. He stood in the away end telling the fans to do that. I think, but you know, you get drubbed 3-0 after a bad set of results, then there was really no coming back from it. And I don't think any of us were surprised to see that news on Saturday night.
Yeah, well, look, it's not like the problem is with Oldham is the fact, I know we said give him 10 games, but you've just been bad, and the goals he conceded, I've just watched the highlights. Oh, my God. Unexcusable, I think, especially for a side like Oldham. The defending was appalling. And it's not just a one-off. It's been happening for a number of weeks now. It's not like they've been unfortunate in games and you can see something that's going to tick at some point. It doesn't look like they've got a plan. Don't feel like they've got any real desire or actual game plan that's effective for this level. Obviously, we know David Unsworth is quite stubborn with his tactics, and you know it's okay to be stubborn with your tactics if they're effective, but they haven't been effective, have they, all season?
No, and I think we alluded to it last time we spoke. You know, you can kind of put up with the way a team plays if you're going to win games and win trophies. You know, You may turn around and say Halifax probably don't play the best brand of football in the world, but they won the FA Trophy, so you take it, right? Whereas, you know, if you start losing games or not winning games, and you're playing in that certain way, it makes it even more difficult for a supporter to stomach. And yeah, it's a really tough gig, that job. You know, the expectant fan base. I think Tom Williams said on his sort of blog that he did on Twitter this week around, that they've got the ability to go from National League right the way through like Luton have, if they can get it right. So you imagine the expectation on anyone taking that job. And David Unsworth just hasn't really done it. He's got his pre-season under his belt. He's got his own players in, and they're just not. And, there's a suggestion, right? He's lost the terrace as he lost the changing room. And, are those players tossing it off because actually David Unsworth just wasn't for them?
Yeah. Well, of course, we're gonna come on to potential replacements for Unsworth now. A lot of names from other National League clubs that I've seen. I think there's 4 major names that I've seen who are National League clubs at the moment. Of course, all seem quite young managers as well, though. And new and up-and-coming managers, I meant to say, as well as being quite young as well, to be fair. But we've also a lot of experienced managers, which is obviously from the Football League. A lot of clubs have done that. The likes of Chesterfield, of course, have done that in Paul Cook. When Wrexham win this league, they tried it out with Phil Parkinson. I also believe Neil Ardley as well. He came from the higher leagues too. And the majority of the time, I would say that does work. But like you've said, when you're bringing in a manager from the higher leagues, they don't have a great understanding of non-league if they've never been in this division before. And for people that are unaware of this division, it's a very, very difficult division, to compete in and managing, I would say, where maybe Oldham are wanting to look at a manager that knows what this league's about. But the problem you've got then is when you've got that manager who's in this division, what happens when you're trying to climb the leagues. That's something we will come on to, though. We're going to have a quick look at the live chat, and then I think a few more people will probably tune in as we go on. Let's have a quick look at the live chat. So the first person who's coming, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Hayden's coming and said, good evening, mate. We've had hello, everyone. Oldham, an Oldham fan has come in. And then Callum said, it's a shame about Unsworth. What a man. I love the sarcasm. And then we've had, hello, gents. Hope you are well. 1-1 wasn't expecting from me at the weekend, but nevertheless, decent point on the road. Anyways, you know what I'm going to say. No pressure whatsoever predicted. Someone said, what a great start. Yeah, I know. I am probably one of the most unorganised people, to be fair. Like Halifax's starts most seasons, to be honest. Up the Spitfires. And then we've had Anthony, who has come in. If I can get it up here. And he said, evening, Luke. Looking forward to hearing any interesting bits I've missed out on over the weekend. 3 clean sheets on the bounce for Dorking Wanderers. Probably a club record. We'll speak about Dorking very, very soon as well when we get on to our predictions. But yeah, very, very good result from you guys. You took, I would probably say, without being disrespectful, your one chance that you got in that game and you took it. But I don't think you were in any real danger from us. I believe we only had 1 shot on target ourselves. And then we've had impressed with Gateshead at the weekend. I have to say, good point for shots despite the late goal. Yeah, I would say, to be fair. Gateshead went into that game off the back of a 6-0 win away from home. And then we've had Unsworth being sacked won't change much for Oldham. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I don't think you're not going to have miracles overnight, are you, at Oldham? We're going to come on to that game v York, but won't change anything. Do you think that's quite a bit strong? Because they've clearly got a lot of money behind them.
So, well, I mean, the $1 million question is, what can the new person who comes in do in terms of changing the fortune? They're not going to, like we said before, they're not going to be able to change their squad. They got the squad that David Unsworth has put together. The only thing that will change is maybe the attitude and application of the players, the attitude of the supporters on the terrace. That will then help generate a little bit of positivity towards the players and the team. They're going to have to act quickly to get it in. I mean, I know Eastleigh are still struggling for a manager, and that can't be good for the playing squad to not have a manager that's going to be permanent telling them what to do, because tactics and ideas change between manager and manager. So they're going to be in a bit of flux as well. But you always see a new manager bounce, don't you, with clubs? So, do Oldham get a new manager in and then they go on a bit of a run? Time will tell, but they've definitely got the ability, and on paper, the players and the backing and the support to be a much bigger force in this league than they are at the moment.
Do you think with Oldham then, maybe, and this is just one scenario I've got in my head at the moment, maybe the fact that they've, been quite, they've kept with Unsworth for a very long time. Do you think part of the reason for that is because they don't have any real significant replacement lined up who's going to come in who, is going to be that man for Oldham to take them up? Because what we've got to remember is, yes, that Oldham, there's a lot of managers that will want the job, but the problem is with Oldham, they're a side that want to get out of this league, and like I've said, it's so crucial that they get this next placement correct, in my opinion, anyway, for that if they're really wanting to try and get promoted this season, and maybe they can't find any big name that's going to be the manager that's going to do that.
You'd like to think any football club has succession planning in place. When Pete Wild left Halifax, was Millington on their list to was he going to be the natural successor? I'd like to think someone like Wealdstone with Stuart Maynard having the sort of the following he does and how many people like him in the league. Have they got a succession plan on considering who they might come in? Now, it's hard to say with Oldham. They brought a new owner in the summer. He seemed very dead set on Unsworth. He gave him a 3-year contract? So
I believe so, yeah.
Have they built in that succession planning on the case of Unsworth leaving because he did so well and got picked by somebody else, or actually because he hasn't done so well and he gets sacked, or they ask him to leave, or he decides to leave? You'd like to think there's that element in there, Luke.
Yeah,
I think that the beauty of Oldham is, as much as it's a really tough ask because of the size of the club and expectation, it's still going to attract names because of the size of the club and the expectation. It almost works both ways, because football managers, like players, are always going to back themselves to say, I'll be the one that's going to take them to the Football League. If managers and players don't have that belief, then there's no point in them really being in this game. So there's going to be loads of names we talk through who will have CVs that show they can get promotions, show they can get in playoffs, show that they can develop youth players, show they can go and find unearthed talent from the lower leagues and the European leagues. And they'll be serving it up to Frank, what's his name, at Oldham, and saying, give me the job.
Yeah, right. So next in the live chat, someone's come in and said, Unsworth just lost the dressing room. Tom said, I'm back again as usual. Callum's also come in and said, HMS, pissed the relegation battle now, more like. And then we've had an Oldham fan that's come in and said, Oldham will finish bottom half, and I don't think it's ridiculous to say that. It's a big call, but at the moment, it's going to take a lot for them to have a significant improvement and be competing where they feel that they belong. Hartlepool away was fun. Up Darrell Sal's mighty card. Yeah, that would have been a long journey, so I bet you're happy you were rewarded with not just a point, but all 3 points. That's a very long way to go as well. And then Hayden said Phil Parkinson would be perfect for Oldham, so hopefully they don't sign him, lol. Yep, we'll come on to that. He's a name that, is local to Oldham as well. He's at Altrincham. Of course, Lundstrom, who's in the midfield, who I do believe Oldham are yet to see play for them because he's been out injured. Of course, him as well. He's been under his management in the past. Any final people that have come in? Harry's come in and said, we are York. And then we've had, I really want Dorking to get promoted. Just Mark White alone. What a character. And then Paul has said, the Oldham fan said, well said, Paul. This is a fantastic opportunity for a manager to prove themselves and achieve multiple promotions. Right then, names then. Who's the manager for you then that would be the perfect replacement?
Oh, do you know what, Luke? When you sent me this question earlier today, I sat there and I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's like 8 or 9 names on this list, and they've all been bandied around. I'm not going to pick out anyone that's not sort of been suggested already, but I think Phil Parkinson is a good shout because of locality. He's now used to that full-time setup, having brought Altrincham from part-time to full-time. They play a good brand of football, Altrincham, and I think the Oldham fans would really enjoy that. So. But again, is he the sort of person at this stage in his career that can take that next step up?
Well, he's doing well. The thing is, he's doing well with Altrincham at the moment, and Altrincham fans adore him. And Altrincham, he's brought in his own players in the summer. You can tell Altrincham's board have put a lot of trust in him. Like I've mentioned, he's well respected there. You go into a totally different environment at Oldham. And the fans, are already got a lot of tension there, hasn't it, at Oldham at the moment? And high demand, isn't there, as well?
I mean, what you got to consider with any manager, Luke, right? So whether it's National League to National League or National League to EFL is, and I have no idea on figures, but imagine the salary that potentially Oldham could pay a manager over the likes of, say, Altrincham, Woking, Hartlepool, whoever. They're going to be probably at the top end of being able to pay a manager a decent salary. So, if you've got a 6,000-7,000 people fan base, you've got that full-time operation that's been in the Football League. So you'd like to think that it's quite a sound sort of environment to be in. With that good squad and a chance to develop again in January and go and get your own players. Yeah, you wouldn't blame the likes of Phil Parkinson, Stuart Maynard from Wealdstone, Mike Williamson from Gateshead is another one who plays, they all play a good brand of football. They've all get in their teams on limited budgets, se. They're sort of punching above their weight, those players. So they're the sort of managers I imagine they're looking at. But you've also then got to look, Luke, at all those EFL managers that are no longer employed at the moment. So Mickey Mellon just left Tranmere, not too far away. Darryl Clark was at Port Vale and has been in the EFL and National League. Scott Brown's just left Fleetwood. A young manager, still trying to find his feet. Is Oldham the right time for him? Probably not, but you've got those sorts of names as well.
Yeah, I know this. My kind of thoughts on it is I couldn't see Phil Parkinson going to Oldham. But then again, I couldn't see Mike Williamson doing it. I couldn't see Stuart Maynard leaving Wealdstone. You've also got to think is, like I've said, it's a totally different environment, but you're managing different type of players, big characters for this division, the likes of James Norwood, just using, for example, Phil Parkinson, a young manager that's come from the lower leagues. He's never really managed or played in the higher, the English pyramid. And you've got players like James Norwood that you're having to manage, Mark Kitchen, players like that. Of course, there's also other players as well in there, a lot of big names. So that's what you've got to think, where if you're bringing in someone who's, got a lot of experience from the Football League, who's been here and done it, they'll be able to manage those players. But that's just my thoughts on it. I personally feel the perfect appointment for Oldham would be to get the Cowley brothers. Now, I know I said that about York, but I think at Oldham there's such potential there. They've shown in the past, and I'm repeating what I said on last week's show, and we're talking about a New York manager, but they've shown in the past at Lincoln that they can climb the leagues, not just in this division, but got Lincoln to League One, and I believe we're knocking on the door to get into the Championship as well before they got, I think, a move to Huddersfield it was then. And ever since, it's not really worked out where they've gone on to that next step, but they're still, in and around League One, League Two, aren't they, at the moment? Now, if they were to drop down 2 leagues at Oldham, that would be the perfect appointment, I think. Do you think that's realistic? And if not, who would you appoint?
Top of the list here, I wrote down was the Cowley brothers are at the top. Mm-hmm. They started at, I think, was it Braintree in the Ishmael League, and they've gone all the way through. They know non-league without a shadow of a doubt. They know how to win promotions. They know how to get the best out of players, and currently they're unemployed. And I would imagine that they are, I wouldn't suggest desperate, but they're probably itching to get back into management. You know, they've been out, 18 months now? Was it Portsmouth was their last job?
Yeah,
so,
I believe.
Yeah, I think they would be on paper an excellent choice. You know, they're quite down to earth. You know, they're quite realistic and pragmatic in how they approach the game and you know what they say in interviews. I think that would be a great one. I mean, I don't know about you, Luke, but depending on the situation with Southend, you know, Kevin Mayer could also be another great shout. You know, because he's an ex-player of theirs. You know, there's real turmoil down there at Southend. As much as they've been loyal to that football club, you know, Kevin Mayer and his backroom staff, the likes of Darren Curry, there's going to be a time where he's got to look after himself and find another job. It could be as soon as October the 4th if it all goes wrong with Southend in court. So, again, that could probably be a bit of an outside shout, but I certainly think that would be quite a solid appointment as well.
I think they'll be trying to get an appointment before then, and personally, I don't think Kevin Mayer would go to Old. I know he used to play for him, and that's the major link, isn't it? The fact that he used to play for him, and he's a very good manager at this level, but he's proven before that he's loyal to Southend, and I think he'll kind of want that status as the manager that was still there when they went bust. I don't think he'd leave a few weeks to go unless he knows that's literally what's around the corner and they're not going to find a way out of it. But for me personally, I think they will. We'll move on to Southend shortly, but just one more manager in the back of my head that I think could be a good manager to bring in. And I personally can't see it happening. He supports the club. He actually managed them in the past for a short period of time when they were under a lot of, exactly who I'm talking about. He managed the club in the past. Pete Wild. I can't explain to you how good of a manager he is. He plays attractive football. You know, he's a passionate guy, which is what Oldham want. A club like Oldham will want a passionate guy. He appreciates the fans. I know this won't be big to any of you guys, but I know Halifax fans think a drum broke, and he was asking why we haven't had a drum in the stand for a long period of time. And we said that it's broken. He offered to pay for a new drum. And, you know, that's the kind of manager that I think Oldham would adore. Someone like that, young, you know, upcoming. You can tell he's got fire in his belly that he wants to achieve things in his career. The problem he's got is he's managing in the Football League now at Barrow, doing a fairly decent job there. I remember when he was at Halifax, he constantly got rumoured with the likes of Chesterfield, Bradford City, and he always turned it down when Halifax were doing well in the league. So if he was to join Oldham, I think he'd want that full summer to bring in his own players. So I can't see him leaving mid-season, unfortunately. And maybe he doesn't want to manage his own club because of that pressure behind it. Do you think that's realistic? And do you think it'd work?
Do you know what? It's as good a shout as any, Luke. And, you know, we've seen players and managers in the past drop leagues to benefit themselves and see the bigger picture of a promotion and getting back to where they were already. The only sort of fly in the ointment, I guess, is when he was at Oldham, he didn't last too long before he decided to leave. He wasn't sacked, was he? He
was. He got let because Oldham fans were devastated. Because
is that what happened? I remember him sort of being in for a very short amount of time and then sort of going, which was a bit odd.
I think they brought him. He was with them. He took them to Fulham away from home. Won at Fulham. He had he went on a good run of form. I think he only had like 10 games, and then back end of the season, and then they let him go in the summer. And then I think Paul Scholes, or was it the Monaco manager, came in, and then we managed to get him. And yeah, he was just I adore him, to be honest.
Yeah, I knew there was that sort of odd sort of occurrence where he was there, then he wasn't, and I couldn't remember the timings around it. So, would he want to go back? I know he's a fan. You know, has he got sort of some unfinished business? But like you said, he's at Barrow. He's doing quite a good job. So, again, I don't think it's a bad outside shout. No one really knows, do they, Luke? There's so many names.
Millington. He supports. I think he's an Oldham fan as well from being a young boy. And I know a few Oldham fans have said they wouldn't mind him coming in. I don't think that would be a good suit, to be honest, because he plays a similar style of football to what Unsworth played.
Yeah. Oh. we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully by the weekend, the appointment will be made, and it might give them a little bit of a boost.
Yep. So we'll move on from Oldham then. Now we're gonna react to the one game, and then we're gonna predict all the games, and we'll look at each clubs and how they've done. But there were one major game that I really want to react to, because I think the two clubs, there's a lot to talk about. York City versus Southend. Now I watched the highlights. It was actually a lot closer game than what some may say when you're looking at the actual result. Southend had a number of chances and just didn't take them. York City were clinical going forward, which I think is something that they've lacked. But I have to say, York, from the highlights, they looked a lot better side, a lot more organised, strong. And I think Neil Ardley has to take a lot of praise for that. Now that they've got that first win, do you think at York they can gain a bit of momentum now? Do you think they have that potential? Maybe you're playing an Oldham side at the wrong time, you might say, after they've just let their manager go. But what's your thoughts on York?
Yeah, I mean, they were desperate for a win, weren't they? Desperate for a win. Like we said in the pod on Thursday, is that a 6 point already this early in the season? So York had to win, sort of try and take advantage of Southend's predicament, and they did. They seem to do it quite well. And whether that's the fact that Ardley's come in and he's sort of got them going, so as much as the last manager probably tried, who knows? That a bit like Oldham, were they really reacting and sort of taking on board what the gaffer was saying? So I think York have got the capabilities of going on a run. We'll just have to see whether it happens. Now, Neil Ardley's certainly the manager to do that. Your first win's always important, but it's small steps for York. Matt Ugler's come out and he's tweeting things about giving contracts to him and them, and we're going to win the league and all that crap. The first situation to worry about, Luke, is they've got to get out of the bottom four. Currently, if the league stopped tomorrow, they're going to get relegated. So let's not start worrying about playoffs and getting into the Football League. They've got to get out of the bottom league, or else they're playing regional football next season. So that's their first aim. And that's not going to be lost on Neil Ardley. He is good, without doubt, going to be looking at getting to that mid-table and then reassessing mid-table. Do we get to playoffs? Reassessing playoffs. Can we get promoted? Getting promoted, I think, is too far. Playoffs is a push. Getting out of the bottom four, I think they'll do.
That's Paul's ugly shite talk for the week anyway, isn't it? We'll speak about that next week though. But no, I have to say from York, I do agree with you there on those steps. I think Neil Ardley, the first job will be keeping York in the division, and then once he feels he's in a good position, it'll be then aiming to top half. Then it'll be playoffs and so on. But it's going to be interesting to see what the true potential of this York side is, because we know that they've underperformed so far this season. But I know we've said all along, what's the actual ability of this side? Do they have the potential to be a force, be a top three side, be a playoff side? And I know there's mixed feelings about that, if the squad is actually good enough to be in the playoff spots. Of course, they're underperforming at the moment, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Southend then. I do think it was a bit of a freak result. I think they were very unlucky I wouldn't say unlucky, but I think the result was a bit deceiving of the actual game and the events. 2 men sent off, which is one of the major things we need to talk about. That ref is a brutal guy. He mustn't understand what's going on there at Southend. 2 red cards. I believe they had 15 players. Now they'll be down to 13 players. And I'm not sure, but they may have players injured as well who might be out for that Maidenhead game. Do you think it's starting to catch up with them now and results are going to really start to suffer in the upcoming weeks?
I think so. I mean, to be able to have to, by the sound that they're going to be able to name one sub tomorrow night, one substitute in the National League is just criminal. So like we said, when they went to court and they got a stay of execution till October the 4th and they couldn't sign any players, they had 10 games to play with that squad of 15 or 16. You lose 2 for 1 to 3 games. I don't know what suspensions they're going to have depending on what the red cards were for. But to go down to 1 or 2 subs, they only named 3 on Saturday. these guys are going to be running on empty. Are they going to be worried about the next time they're going to get paid? All these things must be going through their mind. And anyone who sort of follows Twitter and follows Chris Phillips, who covers Southend, he blogged after the game on Saturday. And I think the more worrying thing about what Chris was saying was there was that feeling of dejection and the race has been run. Like it was almost like, have the players, have they done as much as they can and they're going to go no more, and it's just going to start sort of going this way. So, I know there was something around on social media today about them having another court appearance, and no one really knows what's going on. And, that whole uncertainty just must be unsettling for the players, no matter how much they try and block out the noise from outside and all that sort of stuff they talk about. It's going to affect them. It's going to affect the manager. It's going to affect the fans, and I think the connection between fans and players is unbelievable at the moment. The only person that is disconnected is Ron Martin, and ultimately he's going to cause the fate of Southend, which doesn't look too great, to be one that I think ultimately is going to stop them playing in the league.
Have you seen that his phone number's been leaked now?
Oh, jeez. No, I hadn't.
It must be. The thing is, I don't understand why he's hanging on to this club, because it must be more hassle than it's worth. You've got fans constantly at your doorstep chanting your name.
Yeah, but Lou, if you think about the bigger picture, okay, he's got prime real estate in a suburban town in an affluent part of southeast England that's in a commuter belt to London, that's worth millions and millions of pounds if you were to build on it. Okay, so as much as we probably think there's a load of hassle to it, he's so thick-skinned that his ultimate goal is to say, right, I'm having this ground. Because he's turned around and said anyone who wants to buy Southend can buy the football club for whatever it is, £1, and you can rent this ground for free for 3 years, which allows the new owners to build a football ground for the football club outside of Roots Hall. And then in 3 years' time, they all piss off to this new ground. Southend United carry on, and Ron Martin's got prime building land in the middle of Southend.
Yeah,
it's worth all the hassle in the world to him because he's got no scruples. He's got no morals. It's quite clear from what we've
got nothing left, has he, now? Because his actual businesses have gone.
Yeah, so it's shit or bust for him, and he's gone too far to turn it back round. And he clearly doesn't care, because if he cared, it wouldn't have got this far. So he's going to go all the way, and he's stringing it along. He's playing the game. He'll end up with Roots Hall. Southend hopefully will carry on as a football club somewhere in some league, hopefully the National League. But who's to say it will? But the guy is an absolute shark. It makes my blood boil to think someone can be like that, morally be like that in any walk of life. Especially when you're football fans like we are, and you really want your football club to be the heart of the community and something you want to go and watch on a Saturday and a Tuesday. And I don't think Southend fans ultimately care what level it will be at, but to not have a football club the size of that town, the history it's got, is an absolute shocker.
Yeah, it certainly is. Just as we're on the topic of Southend, before we get on to the predictions, doing a bit of a plug here, but I'm hoping to start, like, as you probably a lot of fans have seen, last season we did a Scunthorpe documentary. I don't think it made much of a difference, but it got it out there, if that makes sense to more people. So we interviewed a few Scunthorpe fans. We did like a mini documentary. It was very good, and it was quite good for me as well to gain a great understanding of what was actually going on there. And I think for the viewers as well, and I think Scunthorpe fans appreciated it too. Now, of course, we further then did like a Wrexham Notts County title race that were very successful, interviewing both sets of fans. I'm hoping to do that with Southend. On the Scunthorpe, like I did with the Scunthorpe documentary, interview a few fans, gain a great understanding. As you've seen there, Paul just corrected me on what I was saying about Southend. But what I'm basically trying to say is basically I wanted to do a documentary. I want to get a better, I can't even say my words, get a better understanding of what's happening at Southend at the moment, and for others as well to gain a better understanding as well of what's happening at Southend, and to hopefully, if it is, it's not a massive channel list, but if it does reach a few more people to hopefully get it out there as well. So if there's any Southend fans that would want to do that, drop me a message after the live stream. And, we can sort an interview out about that. But anyway, we'll move on from Southend. We've been a bit doom and gloom kind of tonight. We've talked about Southend, haven't we? Which we always have to. Of course, Unsworth out as well, we've talked about. But now it's time for the important stuff, predictions. So at the moment, I hope it's going to turn up. These are the scores. Oh, no. That's from weeks ago. These are the scores on the doors. This is the point where we get to laugh at Paul. Just as he's starting to claw back and get back in this to make it a bit more competitive. He has a stinker like that. Plus 2 points. You got 2 results, and that's not even an exact result. You got 2 results correct. What do you have to say about that?
Nothing. I immediately at what was it, at 5 o'clock on Saturday when I was doing the commentary for Wheelstone versus Auction. I was stood in the commentary box, and I had a chance to look at the scores, and I immediately thought to myself, I've had an absolute shocker. Just from memory of what I'd kind of said. So I wasn't surprised, Luke, when you told me I only got 2 points. Listen, it's 2 better than nothing, right? So I'll take the small win there. But the fact you're only 3 ahead of me this week was probably the best thing about it. But it's opened up to 8 points again now. Look.
Yeah, it certainly has. It was a Solihull Moors v Kidderminster result which saved me because I predicted that exactly correct. I'm quite happy with the ones I've got right because I think they're quite unpredictable, and I tried to do that last week, and it's kind of paid off. But then it kind of hasn't at the same time. Like I predicted York to win, and they did. I predicted Solihull to win, and I predicted Eastleigh to win, and they were all correct. But then again, I've like Halifax predicting them to beat Dorking. Paul, I'm going to ask you actually now. Please predict Halifax to lose against Chesterfield. That's what I'm going to say. Because every time you predict us to lose, we get a result. And every time you predict us to win, which I think is only twice this season, we've actually lost in games that you'd expect us to win as well. So can you do that for me?
Yeah, I'll try my best, yeah.
Okay, right. We'll move on to the predictions then. Just as I'm trying to sort it out, please remember to like and subscribe to the podcast. If you are watching this afterwards as well, comment below your predictions or thoughts on anything we've spoke about in the stream. Likes, as I've been made aware, is important because it gets it out to more people. Gets it in front of more people's faces. It gets recommended more. Subscribing just basically builds this community. And I think turn on that notification bell as well, so you don't miss the live stream from the start. But anyway, let's get into the predictions. So we'll have a quick look at the table. Remember to get all your predictions in as well. I'll be reading them out through the live chat. If you're new as well, don't be afraid to get your predictions in. Of course, Chesterfield, there was a side we haven't spoke about yet. Top of the league now, I think for the first time this season. Maybe after, I think the opening day, they were... No, they haven't. Yeah, it is the first time they've been top of the league this season. Solihull Moors, the only side still unbeaten in this division, a side that we're not really talking about. And of course, there's Barnet there too, still up there after that defeat to Rochdale. But Bromley, they've been a right dark horse in recent weeks. They were right down in the relegation zone for the first couple of games, but they've somehow turned it around, and I think they're the most informed side in the division at the moment. As we can see, Halifax have fallen out of the playoffs, so have Ebbsfleet. And down near the bottom now, York have climbed out of that relegation zone. Southend, Fylde, Oldham and Kidderminster. Kidderminster aside for me and Fylde are the two sides that I fear the most for, as well of course of Southend United too. We're going to talk about that as well, who we think are going to be down there this season, because at the moment, as you can see, it's quite hard to tell, because I think, Paul, would you agree, thinking that Oldham and York are probably going to climb up into a better position? What sides would you say are going to be let's say your bottom 6, not in any predicted order, but what 6 sides for you do you think are going to be down there?
Well, Southend, Kidderminster, Fylde, Dorking, Oxford City, and Maidenhead.
Fair enough. Get your thoughts as well in the live chat. Mine's going to might be the same. Southend, Kidderminster, definitely. Maidenhead, kind of feel like Wheelstone could be that side that slipped down as the season goes on. You'll disagree with me there. How many have I said? 4? Is that 4? Yeah. Probably. I expected more from Fylde, and I know it's very early on, but probably Fylde. I think they'll be down there, and I think Oxford as well will be down there. So get your thoughts on that too. Game week 10 then, first game, Altrincham versus Hartlepool. 2 sides out of a bit out of form at the moment. Probably on the worst runs of the season so far. Of course, Hartlepool have just lost to Woking at home. Altrincham, I don't believe, have won in the last 4 games. What's your thoughts on this game then?
I've gone with a Hartlepool win. I think the difference between the two teams, although they're not in a great run of form, the difference between the two teams, Hartlepool still have a bit of firepower. Altrincham were really struggling. They had Dion Angus up top on Saturday, who's not, having looked at sort of the stats around him doing, prepping for the commentary. Really, he's not a prolific goal scorer, and he showed that on Saturday. They sort of played him up top on his own. Concart tried to push in and play as the 10 and support, but they just looked a bit toothless, if I'm honest, Luke. And they are struggling with those injuries, and I don't think Parkinson's got a huge amount to sort of change up coming into Tuesday. So, they were leggy on Saturday. They put a real shift in. They dropped down to their knees and sort of on the ground at the end of the game because it was hot again on Saturday. So I just think, although Hartlepool aren't on a great run of form, they're just, the firepower is going to be too much for Altrincham, and Hartlepool win 2-0.
2 sides that have suffered with injuries. Of course, Altrincham have got a couple of players that are out for the season. Olin Crankshaw. I believe Regan Lynn is also injured at the moment. Dr. Angus? No, I don't believe. I'm just thinking.
Matty Coslow's injured.
Matty Coslow, and he's just
James Jones. James Jones, their centre back and captain. So the whole spine of their teams, who would probably be picked. James Jones had played 90 minutes throughout the whole season until he got injured. Obviously, Crankshaw come in on the big signing. Linney would scored 4 in 6 before he got injured. So, I think they are struggling for numbers. That they even named a sub goalie on Saturday, so they could name 5, which they don't often do. So, I don't think they've got a huge amount of players at the moment.
Hartlepool, though, of course, we've said this, Dodds and Mancini out injured, and ever since they've it's been known that they've been injured and they've been unable to play. Hartlepool have kind of fallen off a cliff as well. Everyone seems to be back in Hartlepool. The first predictions come in for Altrincham, and then they all fire in for Altrincham. Just as I say that. For me, I think I went for a draw for this game. As I've said, both sides have had their injuries. Altrincham are quite good at home. It's a difficult place to go, I believe. And Hartlepool themselves are a bit inconsistent away from home, but both sides will be looking to get a good result after recent performances. And I think for Hartlepool, it'd probably be a good point, and probably as well for Altrincham, maybe. I don't know what Alty fans would think of that. But we'll move on to the next game then. Barnet versus Aldershot. Barnet, the side I've kind of got a problem with at the moment, the way that kind of based off that Rochdale result. What I'll say about them is they play some lovely stuff. They're a side I think Barnet fans really now, will appreciate what style of football they'll be playing based off what it's been like since Dean Brennan's come in, because it was dire the football before Dean Brennan came into the club. They're playing proper attractive football that guarantees goals. The problem that you have though, when I was watching the highlights against Rochdale, is they're proper open at the back because they're firing men forward. I don't know if you've noticed that, Paul, and I know it's that style of play, but he's quite stubborn with his tactics. You go to places like Rochdale who, are going to come at you, and you're trying to, kind of throw men forward and try and outscore them. And I don't think it's going to work at places like Rochdale and, your Oldhams, and probably even when you go into places away like Hartlepool, because sides will basically just catch you on the break, like we saw, Sinclair cut them open on Saturday. So I think at home it's a good style of play, but away from home, when you go into places like Rochdale, I think they need to reconsider the game plan. But then again, what do I know? Because Barnet is still in a very healthy position at the moment. What's your thoughts on that, what I've just said?
I don't think you're far wrong, Luke. Obviously I watched Dean Brennan manage Wealdstone through the National League South. We won the league, played some brilliant front foot attacking football, 2 wide men, 1 or 2 up top, scored lots of goals. Dean Brennan then brought the same philosophy into the National League, and in his first season, in the first half of the first season, we were scoring 5, letting 5 in, 4-2s. The problem you've got is that, a bit like how Mark White found with Dorking, is you can't do that in the National League. You can't outgun teams. You've still got to have that solid defensive base. Now, I said it at the beginning of the season, Barnet were the most improved team last year, and they've improved their squad even more. So their first 11 has now been supplemented by some good squad players. They did lose John Dreyer, who was the assistant manager, and John Dreyer was a defender of some note in the Football League, may even have played in the Prem, I don't know, but he played a number of years in the Football League. He was a defensive-minded coach. He's gone now, so they brought Connor Smith in, who's an excellent footballer and has worked in the Boreham Wood and Barnet academies and etc. How much will that affect them in the long run? And I think you're quite right. If Barnet do play that type of football that Dean Brennan likes, they're going to get outdone at times. And I don't think it's a disgrace to lose to Rochdale at home. I think Rochdale are going to be one of those dark horses. But I think we've all sort of said, Hartlepool are well equipped to go back up, and Chesterfield are going to be the hard team to beat. Rochdale just have gone along with their business. They haven't given the big one. Their fans haven't come on social media saying we shouldn't be in this league, we should be in the Football League. They've just slowly gone about it. And I actually predicted Rochdale to win on Saturday, because I think they're going to get into their stride, and they're going to be up there or thereabouts. So I don't think it's any disgrace to lose to them. I think Barnet will be disappointed because they're in the top 2 or 3. But the bigger problem or concern going forward is, will they do that too often, like you said, Luke, and start losing more games than they win? I think they'll win on tomorrow night against Aldershot. I think they'll win 2-1. But Aldershot played, when I saw them play against Wealdstone, they were very, very, very patient and picked Stones off when Stones went forward and tried to win the game. They just picked them off and scored. So, could they do that to Barnet?
Yeah, I've gone 3-2. There's always goals in Barnet's games. To be fair, I think I'd just love to, be playing that style of football with the players that they've got. It's not always going to work. But maybe my problem is maybe they don't respect the opposition away from home. And to be fair, it's one result at the end of the day, isn't it? It's not the end of the world. They've got a 100% record still at home. The only side in the division to have a 100% record at home. And to be fair, where Barnet were at a couple of seasons ago, I think, they're in a very strong position at the moment. Non-league Bible's been in. Probably, I would give you a plug. I'm going to give you a plug. But most people who probably are in the streams are aware of your work. Of your content creating on social media. But if you haven't, go check out Non-League Bible. Literally the best page out, in my opinion, for regular, non-league information. I believe he's on Twitter, Instagram, and maybe even Facebook too. And he also does a Non-League Bible awards. I believe I'm not sure if he's cancelled them. I know he's looking for sponsorship for the upcoming awards. So I think he was trying to do November awards. So if there's anyone out there that's looking to sponsor, please do. We've had a few more final predictions coming. Non-League Bible said 2-1 to Barnet. I think everyone's been quite sensible with these predictions, backing Barnet to win. I'm going 3-2. There's always goals. I think Barnet, only once this season have Barnet not scored, and that was a defeat to Dagenham. and in 7 of their 9 games have scored more than 2 goals. So, that says a lot about the style of football that they're playing at the moment. So we'll move on to the next game then. I believe we are at Bournemouth versus Rochdale. What's your thoughts on this game?
I'll go with Bournemouth to lose 2-1. Now, they've not started off very brilliantly, have they? Bournemouth generally are very good defensively. They've not proven that so far this season. I think they've been hamstrung with injuries. It's, especially in that defensive unit. So, and again, like we said before, and I just repeat myself, Rochdale are going about their business very, very quietly. They're going to be full-time. They're going to used to be travelling. I don't think their squad hasn't been unsettled too much. So they're going to be used to that sort of Saturday, Tuesday playing in the EFL. So, yeah, I've gone with Rochdale to win 2-1.
I've gone for a draw for this one. I think I've said 1-1 for this game. Tuesday night, long way to go, I think, for Rochdale to travel. Maybe now it's time for them to start to build up that momentum. Because I think Rochdale have the capabilities to be in the playoffs. I thought they looked good against Halifax. I just thought we had a brilliant game plan and we executed it very well away from home. They've got the likes of Sinclair now. He is some player. I watched the highlights, and when I was saying they cut Barnett open, he was, the main man who did that. He was the scapegoat who did that, basically. Scored 2 goals for Rochdale, and they've got other players as well. And, Devante Rodney's out injured at the moment, but, they've got some very, very good players in that side. But, yeah, I'm going for a 1-1 draw. Long way to go. I think Bournemouth, as the season goes on, will really show that they are a very good defensive side. Probably not the best start so far, but they've proven in certain games that they're still very good defensively. So, yeah, I think I'll go for a 1-1 draw for that game. We'll move on to the next one then. It's my team, Chesterfield versus Halifax. Come on, Paul. Chesterfield to win.
Chesterfield 3, Halifax 1. So that means Halifax are going to win, Luke.
Yeah. You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to just be down on Halifax, and then you've basically just broken it now.
I think it speaks for itself. Chesterfield are at home. They're top of the league. They're going to be the ones that are hard. They're the ones that have got to be beaten to win this league, I think, as we've discussed on numerous occasions. And Halifax coming off the back of losing to Dorking and not being too convincing. I don't think that they're going to be able to sort of go over the road to Chesterfield and get anything out of it. But then again, I've said that often with Halifax playing bigger teams. It's the smaller teams they seem to struggle against and seem to beat those so-called bigger teams.
It's that type of game where it's more unpredictable than it looks. Most people will be backing Chesterfield, unless you like Hayden and you're a Halifax fan. But no, I think personally, yes, we've beaten Oldham away, Rochdale away when the odds have been against us. And both times I've predicted us to win when we've been the underdogs and we've actually gone on to win. But if I'm being realistic, I think Chesterfield are going to have too much for us. They're a side that I think have done very well so far. A side that are very different, I think, to last season. I look at games like Ebbsfleet, and I actually thought they were going to drop points there against Ebbsfleet. And, when you look at games like Dorking at home, where they almost dropped points, filed away. What's good about Chesterfield this season is they go to somewhere like Ebbsfleet last season and they would have dropped points, or Ebbsfleet would have scored a late goal, because Chesterfield were knocking on the door for the full 90 minutes. They were miles the better team, but they just couldn't break them down. What's good about them this season is they actually found a way to win. And it's not just that Ebbsfleet game. Every week, they're just finding ways to win. And you're going to have problems at some point. But like I've said, I think Chesterfield, for me, are going to be too strong for anyone this season. I expect them to go on to win the league. Like I've said, the problem with Chesterfield's always been is the fact that they've been too inconsistent. What I'm seeing this season is they haven't even got out of gear yet, in my opinion. I don't even think they've peaked yet, and they're still finding ways to win. I think at some point they're going to give a side a proper proper batter aside. To be honest, at some point, proper thumping at some point. To be honest, probably not against Halifax, but realistically, I'm going to go 2-0 Chesterfield. Yes, they leak a lot of goals, but Halifax don't score many goals, and they got the first clean sheet, of course, against Ebbsfleet. Do you think this Chesterfield side are probably a better side than last season, or do you think it's just the fact that Wrexham and Notts County have left the division?
No, they've got to be stronger with the likes of Will Grigg coming in and, bedding in some of the players that he sort of signed at the back end of last season. I know Andy Dallas sort of came and went, but generally I think they would like to think that they're better than last season, having had that pre-season as well, sort of with those newer players. And I think you've hit the nail on the head, Luke. Last season, Wrexham, many would suggest, weren't the best team in the league. Notts County probably were, in terms of the way they played and when we watched them. But Wrexham found a way to win, and that's exactly what Chesterfield are doing. They will grind results out because of the quality they've got, because of the experience they've got, because of the manager they've got. So, yeah, I can't see many people beating Chesterfield. I think they will win the league. I think last year it was suggested they were the best of the rest, and they've stepped up to the plate and gone, right, we're now the team that we've got to beat. So I don't think we'll have a 100-point season, but Chesterfield, I think, will definitely be there or thereabouts, if not the winners.
I know someone came in probably a day ago when I first put the stream out, and it was a Chesterfield fan, and it's been wiped out now, so I couldn't read it out at the start. But they basically said, who do you think is going to compete with Chesterfield this season? Because, who's going to be the closest to compete with them this season? I think you mentioned, do you think it's too far for Oldham now, although they've had that managerial change? Is there any side for you that you think a few sides that are going to cause Chesterfield a few problems near the top of the table this season?
At the moment, it's hard, isn't it? Because, Barnet, Solihull potentially, but, can they sustain it? Barnet is same. Can they sustain it? Rochdale, will they step it up? Bromley, will they keep the consistency going that they've shown in the last few games? I certainly think that Chesterfield will be sort of on their own, and the rest will sort of battle out for those playoff places. I can't see anyone really challenging Chesterfield, but it's hard to say. But genuinely, I don't think there will be a 2-horse race like there was last season. Do
you think it's out of Oldham's reach now?
Without doubt. Yeah. Like I said, they've got to get out of the bottom 4 first and reassess. One step at a time. And if you think about where Oldham are at, they're already 7 points behind the playoff places, let alone getting
15
promoted.
15 points behind Chesterfield.
Yeah, so they're essentially 3 wins behind getting in the playoffs, let alone trying to win the league. So listen, the York have just got out of that bottom 4. They got to stay out of it. Oldham has got to start creeping up, so that those predicted sides who get drawn into the bottom 6 will end up there, and the likes of York and Oldham will end up sort of creeping up the league. But so I don't think York or Oldham are in any fit state at this present time to sort of mount a promotion charge. Playoffs out on the outside of that.
Joe said the usual suspects: Barnet, Bromley, Bournemouth, Woking, maybe Solihull. But the thing is, to me, they're all just playoff teams. There's no name there that I think, they're going to take Chesterfield all the way. I think, any of those teams will just find themselves in order. Barnet was a side that I think play very attractive football. But like we saw, they went to Rochdale away. They lost to Dagenham. They're very good at home, but I just think, like I've said, it'll catch up with Barnet. I think they'll be in the playoffs. Solihull aside for me, draw too many games. Yes, they're unbeaten, but that'll catch up with them as well. They're not ruthless. They're not constantly winning games. Just looking at the games previously, 1-0 away at Kidderminster, 1-1 v Woking, 3-3 v Oxford, beat Oldham, drew to Halifax. There's too many draws for me in there. And, we look at Chesterfield. I just want to read out some of their results recently. They're all close games, but 1-0 versus Ebbsfleet, proper difficult place to go, I think. 3-1 v Dagenham, Aldershot gave them a proper good game. And I also want to mention, prior to that game, Aldershot hadn't actually lost at home all season. And they scored a late goal, Chesterfield, to go on to win. Hartlepool at home, another game where they scored a last-minute goal. Of course, they've lost games, like every side has. They've lost a one game to Altrincham, but it's not a regular occurrence. And like I've mentioned, I still don't think they've peaked. I think they're gonna go on a run of games where they're gonna just be thumping sides. You look at the next two home games, and if you're a Chesterfield fan, you'd probably go into that thinking we can really, really, cut open these two sides in Halifax and Wealdstone. Would you agree with that? Do you think if you were a Chesterfield fan and you saw Halifax and Wealdstone coming up, you'd be rubbing your hands together?
Yeah, both at home as well, without a shadow of a doubt. Listen, I think Halifax and Wealdstone are capable on their day to go and probably get a result. Doing that's a lot harder than in reality than saying it. And I think Chesterfield have got to be buoyant enough to think that they're the sorts of teams that they've got to win if they want to win this league. And I can't see that being any different. I think they will get 6 points out of our teams, Luke. So, not a good, might be a good week for us maybe, but I think Chesterfield will just be too strong.
Yeah. Someone's come in and said, think Gateshead might be a bit of a dark horse. Could be a good shout, but like I've said, just too many draws. And I know it's early on in the season, but, I don't particularly feel like they've really been playing sides like Chesterfield have. They've played Hartlepool, they've played Oldham. I know Oldham are down there, but still a big game. And they've pulled through games like Hartlepool. For me, I think Chesterfield are just going to be too strong, in my opinion. I don't think any side's going to come close. Maybe that'll come back to bite us. We'll move on to the next game, Dagenham v Bromley. Bromley might be a shout, but like I've said, I just don't think they've got enough going forward. For me, although they've got Michael Cheek, I don't think they're good enough all around the pitch to compete with them. But Bromley at the moment, probably the most informed side in the division. They're actually unbeaten in 7 games and they've won the last 4 games too. Are you backing them again against Dagenham?
I am, yeah. I've gone with a 2-0 win for Bromley. They're flying high, right? Like I said, I think they're the most informed side. Andy Woodman's stuck to his guns, kept the youth in. They're obviously adapting to the league very well. Dagenham as well, having seen them play this season, I thought they were very good. Still not got any Effiong up top, so I think they struggle a little bit for goals. So I've gone with a 2-0 win to Bromley.
Keep your predictions coming in, guys. I believe I might have agreed with you on that. Yeah, I have done. I've gone 2-0 to Bromley too. They're just a proper well-organised force, I think, now, to be honest, for me. Like I've said constantly, I really rate Andy Woodman. They don't play the most attractive style of football, but they grind out results like they have done in recent weeks. Oldham, I thought, were very poor, but you can only beat what's in front of you. And I think winning that just shows that, they're a very, very good side. And, I'd expect them to go to Dagenham and get a result. They've had a bit of a slow start to the season, but now they're on a good run of form at the moment. So I'd be going for a 2-0 win for Bromley for me. We've had someone else has come and said 2-0. And then Lloyd, I've heard you were trying to meet me on Saturday, Lloyd. I did go to that bar in the end, but you weren't there. I believe you were wearing that CP jacket as well. But yeah, good to see that you're in the stream, mate. And then we've had 2-1 to Bromley. So we'll move on to the next game then now. Dorking v Wealdstone. 2 of the only part-time sides still remaining in the division. I have to apologise, Paul, but I'm going to be backing Dorking for this game. 1-0 to Dorking. A very good result for Dorking away at Halifax. They probably had one attempt and they took it, but neither did Halifax really have any attempts. It was not the most entertaining game. I don't think any people would have tuned into that one on National League TV if you're from abroad. Wealdstone, then. Of course,
yeah.
What's your thoughts on it then?
My thoughts on it are, I'm not sure it's going to be the most exciting fixture in amongst the list of matches. The only good thing is, like you say, they're both part-time, both play a similar sort of football. Yeah, it should be evenly matched. Neither score bundles of goals, neither let loads of goals in. I mean, Mark White shored this defence up, so they're not quite as cavalier as they used to be. So I've gone with a 1-1 draw in hope that Wealdstone might get 3 points, but I don't think they will. I think it will be 1-1. And I'm just hoping it might be a bit more exciting than it was on Saturday against Altrincham, and it was 0-0. So that I'm going along there hoping that it's going to be a half decent game and we might score a goal and we may get a win. But I think it's unlikely. I think we'll nick a draw.
Dorking are a bit like Wealdstone, but they're just a bit more direct out there and faster with their play. I'd probably say. I don't know if you'd agree with that. Wealdstone.
Yeah, I've not seen Dorking play this season. Obviously, they play on the 3G surface at home. That's always going to be a benefit to them, although I know Mark White has sort of complained about the quality of it. But sometimes that does help the way Wealdstone plays. If the pitch is wet and it's a bit zippy, that might be helpful. But yeah, you're right. I think the fact is, though, Luke, Wealdstone have the ability to really inject a bit of pace and directness into the way they play. It's just the last couple of days, games that we've had, it hasn't been there. It may be Tuesday night, the conditions with the weather not so hot, that it may give them that sort of impetus to go and play a little bit more direct, knowing that Dorking, maybe not be quite as strong at the back as other teams. We'll see. I mean, some people are saying 3-4 goals being scored. I personally can't see it, but let's see. I think it'll be 1-1.
I'm going 1-0 to Dorking, unfortunately. Wealdstone very inconsistent. Dorking just come on the back of a win. I think Dorking will, back this up. You'd like, if you're a Dorking fan, you'd like to think you've travelled all that way up to Halifax and you've managed to win there on home turf against Wealdstone, which I think to be honest, most teams in this league would say, I'm playing Wealdstone at home. You'd probably say it's a must-win game. You'd like to think Dorking would win that one. Moving on to the next game then. Eastleigh versus Oxford. Eastleigh, one of the sides that I backed after they just lost 6-0. And for once, it actually paid off. Oxford, though, of course, they drew to Dagenham. I personally am going to back Eastleigh again. Oxford's unbeaten run's going to come to an end at some point. And, I think travelling all that way up to Fylde, to the fans who did go, I think they were rewarded with a good result there. And to be fair, they were the better team. How do you see this one going?
Well, I don't think Oxford City's unbeaten run will stop. I think Eastleigh are going to get a couple of goals and so will Oxford City. So I've gone with a 2-2 draw. Oxford are very good at scoring goals. Eastleigh have got the firepower on paper to score goals. Bit of an odd one. They still haven't appointed the manager, so whether that's still going to be cause a bit of an unsettling factor for them. But yeah, I just think Oxford City are just a little bit buoyant at the moment. And I know I said about them sort of being dragged into the bottom 6 at some point. Having seen how Wealdstone adapted to National League, they had a really good start and they got lots of points on the board, and it slowly catches up being part-time and squad rotations not available and suspensions come in and injuries come in and, Saturday, Tuesday every now and then. So I think Oxford have really got to capitalise on their good form at the moment and get as many points on the board, because I think you're right, Luke. Teams that draw too many aren't going to get promoted, but draws will keep you from being relegated. They won't get you promoted. So I think if someone like Oxford and Wealdstone, if they can keep picking up draws where if they're not going to win, that's going to help them stay up. And I think Oxford City have got to look at the same sort of mantra and think, right, let's get as many points on the board now as we can, whilst we're in a bit of good form, whilst the weather's good, whilst the squad's strong, and then we'll see where it takes us from there.
I think at some point Oxford, it'll just hit them and they'll go on a bad run of form. Like you mentioned there, weather-wise, when the weather starts to turn, we see a lot of sides like your Oxfords. I think Wealdstone are another side known for it. Sides that are, part-time and a bit kind of overachieved, don't they, in the early parts of the season, and then as it does get tough, seem to slowly fall down the league table and go on a bit of a bad run. And I could see that at Oxford at some point, but they need to start ranking up the points and keep that momentum going, because, to be honest, they are a bit of an unknown quantity still, I think. Sides don't really know what to expect from them. You know, they play quite attractive football, but at some point, sides are going to find them out. And that's where it's going to be really testing for them. For this one, though, I'm going to be back in Eastleigh. I believe I said 3-1 for this game. But Matthew's coming, he's an Eastleigh fan, and he said applications closed for the manager last Friday, so hopefully have a manager by next week. But it's a joke it's taken this long. Yeah, the thing is, what I thought was I didn't think Lee Bradwick were like urgent to get him out of the club. So I was a bit surprised to see that, you know, they've let him go and they haven't had a manager laid up instantly to come in. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Paul.
No, it does seem a bit of an odd one, doesn't it, in terms of, like we said before, succession planning. I mean, they must be thinking they're a good proposition for someone, so open up their applications in hope they'll get several decent applicants to sort of choose from. But at the same time, they've still got to go out and try and win games, you know, in the weeks they haven't got a manager.
Yeah.
And they're not proving to be too successful in gaining a load of points, are they? So I think I'd be interested to think who Matthew might think is going to be the one that comes in and manages Eastleigh. But, you know, if they get a manager, it's not going to be before tomorrow, might be for the weekend, but it does seem strange it's taken so long.
Yeah, let us know who you guys think could be the next Eastleigh manager, because it has taken long, and I know it's something we've kind of struggled with, haven't we, to think of names that I think will have a good impact. I think for me personally, it's going to be someone from the lower leagues, or it could be someone from like the academy of like a local club like Southampton, Brighton, some side like that. Portsmouth, I think, are down there as well. Lloyd said, Luke, are you coming to Dorking? It's a long way off. A long way off as in like, I don't know, it's the other side of the season, but I went last season, so hopefully we'll be going again. And then we've had Joe's coming. I think it should be encouraging that they are doing it right and not appointing the first available manager. Good point, to be fair. And then we've had, when we did it properly, we ended up with a brilliant manager who turned the club around, but turned out to be, we won't read that, but I think everyone knows who you're referring to. We'll move on to the next one then. Gateshead versus Kidderminster. I think I've backed Gateshead for this one. I think I said 2-0 to Gateshead. Kidderminster so far this season, they've scored 4 goals, I believe, all season. 4 goals in 9 games. Averaging over the season, it's just over 20 goals. Now, that's not going to keep you in the division. And I have to say, Kidderminster, I've been very, very disappointed with. Prior to the season kicking off, the recruitment, I thought it was dreadful. To say they've just been promoted, they've worked for the past 7 seasons to get back in the National League where they belong. And they're a big enough club to be in this division and probably in the Football League as well, with the crowds that they're getting and the history behind them. Yet the players that they've brought in, I don't really understand it, but they've just not really excited me. And going forward, especially, they don't really have anyone that's going to be prolific for them this season. And, if you don't have a prolific goal scorer, you need other players to be chipping in with goals. And I don't think they've got enough of that. I don't know what your thoughts is on that at the moment.
No, I completely agree, Luke. If you can't score goals, you're not going to win games. It doesn't matter what level you're at. If you're playing under 10s through to Sunday League, through to Premier League, you'll see it with Luton in the Premier League. If you don't score goals and you're susceptible to letting goals in at the other end, you're never going to win a game of football. And if you can't score a goal and you're good in defence, you're only going to draw a game of football. So I think, 4 in 9 speaks for itself. And I put that on my notes here. When you asked about who do you think will be in the bottom 6, Kidderminster's down there because they just don't score enough goals. Yeah. Defensively, they might be quite sound, but at some point they're going to make a mistake, let a goal in, and then they're chasing the game. So I'm a little bit like, I'm very much like you are. I've gone with Gateshead. They score a lot of goals. I know they haven't, they probably haven't picked up a couple of results they maybe thought they would after that 6-0 win against Eastleigh. But I think being at home, Kidderminster, I don't even know if they're full time or not. It's a long way to go on a Tuesday night.
And
I think Gateshead will win 2-0.
Yeah, so we've agreed on that one. I know Matthew's come in as well, and he said, think it's between Paul Tisdale and McMahon. That's one that I could see happening. Not that I think it'd be a good appointment, but I could see that happening. I'm not the biggest fan of McMahon. Obviously, he was at Dagenham most recently, before he was let go. And Dowell, personally, realistically, who will get the job? Mr. Lucas coming with his thoughts. I'm saying 3-1 to us. Even though Kidderminster do not concede many goals, we are scoring a lot of goals in our first 9 games. I believe we can keep it up. I'm confident, but we will see. We'll move on to the next game then. Oldham versus York. Probably one of the most unpredictable games, I think, to be predicting. Oldham have just let the manager go. York have had their first win of the season. I'll hand it over to you then, Paul. How do you see this game going?
I've gone with Oldham 2, York 0. I don't know about you, Luke, but the manager's gone. The not necessarily the players, because I don't know how the players are going to react to that, but especially the supporters might be a little bit buoyed by it. Happy that Unsworth. Sounds bad that as a fan base doesn't want a particular manager, but they're going to go along with a bit of hope and anticipation. They can beat York. Let's get this right. York have won 1 game this season. They may have won on Saturday, but they've only won 1 game, and they are playing away from home. So Neil Ardley's got to back up that first win with the second one, or at least get a draw. Yeah. I don't think it will happen. I think Oldham, there may be a new manager in the stands. There may be a new manager watching from afar. Those players are playing for their places in the team, knowing that a new manager's coming in. I think all the odds are stacked in Oldham's favour, apart from the fact they haven't got a manager, against York to win the game. And I've gone with 2-0 Oldham.
I've gone for a draw, 1-1. Maybe a bit of a cop-out for a game like this. But York, I thought they looked good against Southend. And like I've said, it's about building momentum. Oldham still without a manager. And I can't see any significant improvement until they appoint a new manager, to be honest. Harry said Morton is the next Eastleigh manager. He's from the north, isn't he? So I don't know if that'd work. And I don't think it'd be the best appointment either. We'll come back to the predict. We'll have a look at all your predictions quickly, but I'll just try to get the next game up as we have gone over an hour now, and it is over 9 o'clock. So we'll quickly try get the next game up if my computer loads.
Solihull versus AFC Fylde is the next one.
Yeah, go on, give your thoughts then.
Well, I think AFC Fylde, I think you're quite right, Luke. They've been very disappointing this season, haven't they? I've seen them down at the Vale. Apart from a bit of good skill, we did break them down and beat them in the end. Solihull Moors, yes, they have drawn too many, but they're still second in the league, still unbeaten. They are at home, and I think that will continue. I think Solihull Moors will win 3-1.
I've backed Solihull to win. I think I've said 1-0. Solihull, they don't score many goals, do they, Solihull? But they find ways to win. Problem with Fylde that I've got is, like I said, very underwhelming, and they leak a lot of goals. I expected them to be a side that had come up, and maybe not as good as Ebbsfleet, but I thought they'd be up there, mid-table, maybe higher mid-table this season, and it's still early. But I know a few Fylde fans, had big thoughts for this season, were quite ambitious with their expectations, and to be honest, so far, it's been quite underwhelming there. They're a side, I know, with a lot of money and won't be wanting to return to the National League South. We'll move on to the next game then now. Southend versus Maidenhead. I don't really know what to say. Southend are very, very good at home, something we've got to mention. But I know someone actually said there's only 10 players registered to play at the moment, so I'm guessing the youth team player will come in if that's allowed. Maidenhead, though, you'd probably say usually I'd be backing them to win. And before I did this, I said that Southend would win, so I'll stick with Southend to win. But now it's another game that's quite hard to really call, and that's not in a good way either. But I'm going to go 1-0 to Southend. How do you see this one going?
I think Southend will eke out a draw. I mean, Maidenhead aren't the strongest in the league, and I think if Southend could play one of several teams on a Tuesday after a Saturday when they've only got 11 players and a sub, you take Maidenhead, wouldn't you? No disrespect to Maidenhead, but they're not going to be one of the stronger teams in the league. They're at home at Roots Hall. These fans are potentially running out of games to go and follow their team, and I think there'll be a big backing for them, and that will give them a really good drive to try and get a result. But I think just the numbers and the players they probably got to choose. I think Southend are looking at self-preservation and we'll hope for a draw at 1-1.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the next game. I know Ali Kim said, has Woking v Ebbsfleet been predicted yet? No, we've got to come on to that one shortly. And it is actually the final game. Ebbsfleet will be wanting to bounce back after that result, but Woking, on another side, didn't have the best start to the season, but now in a healthy 5th place position. I've gone 2-2 for this game. How do you see it going?
I've gone with Woking 2-0. I think, a lot of the time, it's a fairly local game for each team. Ebbsfleet coming up from Kent to Surrey, so it's not too far in terms of travelling. I think on Tuesday night games, you've got to fancy the home teams generally, and I think looking at the results that Woking and Ebbsfleet have had, Woking are going to be too strong, and they're slowly, a bit like Bromley, a bit like Rochdale, are slowly just getting into form, aren't they? And they sort of snuck under that radar a little bit. We talk about York and Southend and Oldham and Boreham Wood sort of not doing what we expected, whereas Woking, we sort of suggested early on, haven't started well. Bromley haven't started. All of a sudden, they're in the top 6, 7. So I think they'll consolidate their place up there, and they'll get a win against Ebbsfleet 2-0.
Yeah, right. A lot of people are obviously tuning out now, so we'll quickly get through all your thoughts in the live chat, and then we'll, of course, bring things to a close. But I have just seen the Heed Army podcast are joining us tonight, or they've joined us late, I should say. Evening, gentlemen. All the best for the week fixtures, unless you are playing Gateshead. Cheers for tuning in, guys. Who was it Gateshead had again? Now I've forgotten already.
Home to Kiddie.
Kiddie, yeah. How have I forgot that? We literally just talked about it. But, Kidderminster fans will be the only one. Southend postponed versus Maidenhead. Is that just a prediction, or is that actually?
I think that might be a prediction. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Last time I checked at my phone, a Southend fan's been run over by Ron Martin. That's how stupid it is at the moment. There, we'll get through your predictions. So people are saying 1-1, 2-1 to Woking, 2-0. 2-1 Woking. Get your fan-like questions or anything like that in. Thoughts on the National League, anything like that. Get them finally in now. And also, to those people that watch it afterwards, which the majority of people do, please go in the comments below and let us know your full predictions, and I'll comment below and give my thoughts on them too. I believe that's more or less it. So, what was that? Sorry. What A levels are you doing, Luke? Sport and media, and sport counts for 2. We'll have to do a stream like that where we just don't talk about the National League at all and just let anyone ask any questions at all. But yeah, please remember to like and subscribe to the podcast. Paul, once again, thank you very much for joining me
no problem,
on this Monday night at quite short notice as well. It's been great to speak to you, and it's also good to see you haven't predicted Halifax to win.
No, go well tomorrow. Enjoy it. Enjoy your fixtures wherever any of you guys are going to go and watch. I'm off for Dorking to watch Wealdstone, so he's hoping for a win.
Yeah, you will be. It'll be cold at Dorking, I'll tell you that. Someone's come in just finally and said, sorry to send a game, but don't know about any other clubs, but Woking have played 4 out of the top 7 already, excluding us, and have only lost 1 and drew 1, and the rest wins. We'll speak more about Oldham on Thursday, hopefully, as long as Paul can join me. Someone said that'd be a good stream. Yeah, we will do it at some point, probably over the Christmas period, something like that anyway. But yeah, thank you to everyone that's tuned in. Please remember to like and subscribe, and we should hopefully be seeing you on Thursday evening. Bye for now.